Hello, and welcome to another episode of Just in Time Worlds with me, Marie Mullaney. Bank heist plots are a natural outgrowth of having banks, and that is the topic of my video today. The history of banking and how to include banking in your world while making it feel in keeping with your fantasy setting. If you like this kind of world-building content, please do consider smashing that subscribe button. And if you want to help me make more of these videos, you can buy my book, The Hidden Blade, or you can hit my Ko-fi page, and more about that at the end of the video. I also do have a Discord server where you can connect with me and other world builders. Okay, enough of that. Let's get cracking. The temples of Mesopotamia were the first very prototype bank. They stored grain as a means of wealth securely, and grain could be transferred between owners by means of a written receipt. Specifically, the grain was stored in the temples because it was believed that the gods would themselves offer security for the grain stored. The first recorded loan comes to us from the Babylonian temples in 2000 BC. So whatever the time period of your fantasy world is, it is likely that you can include some form of banking without breaking with the feeling of the time period. I haven't seen many fantasy authors write in the Bronze Age period, which is a shame because it is a very awesome period of history. But this approach where the temple acts as your prototypical bank and evolves into your bank is certainly an interesting approach in a fantasy world where your gods can potentially be real. Maybe the god really does watch out for the money stored in their vaults. And if so, what does a thief risk when they steal from that vault? Does the god maybe only protect it while it's in the vault, and once you have it on the road, everything's fair? Or maybe nobody steals anything until they figure out how to remove the curse that the god places on those who try to steal from the temple. All of these bring in really entertaining elements into that often told tale of the bank heist. If you've seen temple-based banks in the fantasy world, let me know in the comments. Many goldsmiths became the first banks since they had to store their own gold securely. Some of their clients wished the goldsmiths to also store their gold, leading to the first bank deposits. At this point, the smiths did not yet charge or give interest. Instead, they charged their clients for the storage space in their vaults. Eventually, the goldsmiths did start lending money, an activity complicated in Europe at least by the canon laws against usury. The early banks worked around these laws by hefting late penalties instead of interest. It was possible for a client who borrowed money to repay their loans early and pay no interest, but this would get you blacklisted by every goldsmith bank in Europe. This model of a crafts guild becoming a bank is what I leveraged in my world in the Empire of Lumiaron. My Gem Cutters Guild is just getting started with this model in the opening book, The Hidden Blade, and they offer a service of transporting wealth as gemstones between cities and keeping their clients' wealth safe. Gringotts Bank from Harry Potter feels like this kind of bank for me. I can't remember the bank loaning people money, though Ludo Bagman did loan from a group of goblins. However, Gringotts, with its system of vaults, definitely feels like a gold storage type of bank, rather than a fully developed modern bank. The application of fantasy to the security of the bank is very cool, though. Everything from the dragons to the doors that need a Gringotts goblin to open them. Indeed, the plot potential of bank heist is exploited very well by J.K. Rowling. Even in the first book, there is the mystery of how the bank vault was broken into. And in the final book, Harry and the gang have to break into Gringotts and get the Hufflepuff cup, leading to a very complex plan where they have to leverage Polyjuice Potion and one of the forbidden curses. Having almost any kind of banking system with reasonable defenses allows you to use the incredible power of the bank heist as a plot point. And you can use it either as something the main characters have to pull off, or something they have to guard against, or even something that they have to solve. All around, a great banking system opens up enormous action-adventure plot opportunities. If you like this kind of exploration of plot points unlocked by world building, please do give this video a thumbs up. Of course, it wasn't just guarding money in a stationary position that required banks. The transportation of money had a fundamental impact in our society. Specifically, it's one of the means by which the Knights Templar became so rich and powerful. Money transportation services were very much required when the Crusades started. This was one of the services provided by the Knights Templar. In due course, they found themselves swimming in wealth between charging for their services of transportation of money and the battle loot gained from the Crusades themselves. The Templars then started lending money to the governments of Europe to assist in financing more crusades, and thus got even more wealthy. Like the goldsmiths, they worked their way around the usury laws by means of late fees. Of course, all good things must come to an end, and King Philip of France came up with an easy way around repaying his loans to the Templars. He accused them of blasphemy, and because half of the crowned Europes were in hock to the Templars, they all decided that Philip was onto a good thing, and so the Templars were disbanded, hunted, killed, and their wealth seized. Banking can be a risky business. However, there was no stopping the rise of banking now. Northern Italy, specifically Florence in the province of Tuscany, became the new home of banking. Unlike the Templars, who built their bank as a massive enterprise spanning Europe, the bankers of Italy were smaller, family-run businesses. And this is where the word banks comes from, because they used to handle the transactions on open benches, and hence the word bank. The most famous of banking families is, of course, the Medici family, and you can check out my video on their contribution to arts and patronage in the information card. Even for these more modern bankers, there were problems with loaning to the crowned heads of Europe. Edward of England, for example, simply defaulted on his loans, causing many of the smaller Italian banks to fold since they couldn't afford to carry that amount of debt. For me, the best example in fantasy of this Renaissance level of banking comes from George R.R. Martin and the Iron Bank. The Iron Bank was formed by the merchants of Bravos pooling their wealth in order to offer loans to other merchants. In due time, they amassed massive power, and governments borrowed from the Iron Bank. And we can see the influence and power that the Iron Bank exercises even over Westeros. This model, where merchants pool their wealth in order to offer loans, is a very logical outgrowth of merchant guilds being your prototypical banks, and I explored that concept in my video on merchant guilds, which you can check out in the information card. From these roots of the Renaissance, modern banking arose, and I'm sure I don't need to talk about modern commercial banks. We're all very familiar with them. If you enjoyed this historical analysis of banking, please do hit the thumbs up button. It lets me know that this is the kind of content you like. However, this channel is about fantasy world building, so let's talk about a couple more specific fantasy elements of banking. Firstly, from Patrick Rothfuss's Kingkiller Chronicles, we get the concept of a gaylet, which is a semi-legal loan shark equivalent. This is an institution which will lend to people who the normal banks will not lend to because the risk of defaulting is high. These loan sharks charge staggering interest rates. Indeed, during Corveth's time at university, he had to borrow from one of these gaylets a woman named Devi. What I found really interesting was that Devi took a drop of his blood as collateral and threatened to sell it if he was late in his payments. So the magic of the world comes into play because in the Kingkiller Chronicles, you do not want your blood to fall into the hands of your enemies. This illustrates masterfully how to use loan collateral in a fantasy world. You don't have to restrict yourself to property or wealth as collateral. You can use your magic system to build tension and put pressure on your protagonists. Repay your debt, boyo, or this terrible magical thing will befall you. Another great example of weaving magic into banking comes from the Eberron setting. Eberron is a D&D setting where magic and technology have combined in a very steampunk style of a setting. The banking guild is part of House Kundarak, which is the dwarven dragon-marked house. These banks can be found in every city of the 5 nations and in eastern Khorviar. They are protected by magical wards and by house guards. Kundarak vaults are magically linked so that anyone wishing to make a deposit or withdrawal from their storage can do so at any bank. So it is a very nice application of magic to banking, securely managing the transportation of wealth between cities. I'd call the Kundarak banks the equivalent of a modern commercial bank. So if you're looking for some inspiration on how to merge banking and magic, check the Eberron setting out. In summary, if you want to build a bank for your fantasy world, think about why is it trusted? How does it store money? How does it move money around? And what does it do if people default on their loans? And don't forget, you are building a fantasy world. What are the fantastical elements of this bank that you're building? And that is my take on banking in a fantasy world. I hope that you enjoyed that episode of Just in Time Worlds. Please do hit the thumbs up button if you did. It helps make sure that the algorithm doesn't bury the content out back. If you really enjoyed this and you want to help me make more of these videos, you can buy my book, The Hidden Blade by Marie M. Mullaney, or you can hit my Ko-fi page where you can make a one-off donation, buy a membership, or even buy a product.